Hey guys! Brad the Browncoat Brony here with the long-awaited part 3 of Kiss of the Dark. And I'm this is a good part, so I just want to go right into this, so yeah. But before I do, just one short announcement. I'm fine. The channel's gonna be fine. My car's fine, or gonna be fine. So, no one donated anything. So I made it out just fine on my own. But you know. But yeah. So yeah, everything's fine. And for those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, I deleted that update video. So you know. But anyhow, I'm fine. Everything's great. So anyhow, with that, I want to jump right into this part of the reading. So let's get going. Checkmate with a Pawn, Part 1. 7 in the morning. An hour to go before the chariot left for its destination. Sombra could spare a few moments to prepare himself, before he sent the magical sphere to take the form of the pony Forest Mist again. The crystal heart would deny him the chance to walk through the Empire with his real hooves. He was aware of that. It was the reason why he used the magical sphere spell instead of the transformation one. It was a shame to hit a roadblock like that. While he could see, hear, and even feel just fine within the limitations of the sphere, nothing could compare to being somewhere himself, instead of watching events unfold from his castle again. Speaking of which, he looked forward to seeing his own home once more, even if he had to tolerate seeing it in the worst of conditions, and with some pony else in charge that couldn't lift a hoof against him. It would be a great reminder of the prize waiting for him at the finish line. The sphere gracefully lifted along the treetops of the Everfree Forest. To most ponies, the ball was part of the wildlife, one of the many reasons they needed to stay out of the forest whenever they had the choice. He could make out a small peaceful cottage on the edge of the woods. It wasn't something he had seen before, but judging from the chicken coop, multiple trees, and the way the house almost looked like a tree itself, he judged that animals made their home inside. A few more meters down the street, the sphere landed on the ground and transformed to take on the form of Forest Mist. He stretched out his hooves and parted them through his mane before he went on his way to Ponyville. After he spent 30 minutes killing time by looking through the houses, guessing which ones belonged to the elements of harmony, he soon discovered that Twilight loved being ahead of schedule. There was already a golden chariot waiting by her front door, glistening with gems on the outer rim. 2 guards were inspecting every aspect of the ride, making sure it was ready for the departure when the time was ready. After that, they left their posts to get some breakfast. He glanced up inside the house's windows to see if there was any sign that Twilight was awake. And surely enough, he saw a purple alicorn in the middle of discussing something with a small baby dragon. Spike suddenly caught sight of a tall green stallion and pointed right at the visitor's direction. "So that must be Forest Mist," Spike mentioned. "Is that the pony you're taking to see Cadence?"
"Yes, that's him," Twilight answered. "He's never been to the Crystal Empire, so I thought it would be a good idea to show him around while I'm visiting Cadence."
"So let me get this straight. I'm supposed to be looking over the house, making sure that if there's any royal business to attend to, I'll be here to take care of it in your place. I just have one question."
"Yes, Spike?"
"Does that make me a prince?" He grinned. She opened her mouth to scold him for it, but she stopped when she realized he was half right.
I guess it makes you closer to being one, now that I think about it. What about high-ranking official? How does that sound?"
"I'll take it. I'll see you tonight, then. Just make sure he doesn't do anything weird," he said, gesturing to Forest Mist. "He bugs me out."
"Trust me, I'll know if he does something out of the ordinary."
With that business out of the way, she walked out of the door to see Forest Mist waiting for her by the side of the chariot.
"You're here sooner than I thought,"
Twilight beamed. "I like to be ahead of schedule," he said, chuckling underneath his breath. "This chariot was designed to be manned by Pegasi, but where are the Pegasi?"
"They should be here any moment. I can't wait to show you around the Empire. You're going to love it there. And it's been a while since I've seen Cadence, so it's going to be even better."
"Well, you sure seem excited about it." He took that moment to peer inside the chariot, the carriage they would take through the clouds. It was around the same size as the one Celestia owned. It had enough room for 2 ponies to be seated comfortably, complete with plush seating. But then again, those 2 ponies would be very close to each other. "Twilight, are we riding in the same chariot?" he asked.
"Of course we are. Is there something wrong with it?" I can bring a few pillows if it looks uncomfortable.
No, but we'll be seated right next to each other for hours.
I know! You'll be able to see Equestria like Pegasi do! And believe me, it's unlike anything you've ever seen!
Forest Mist blinked. To say that her enthusiasm caught him off guard was an understatement. Still, he shook his head and smiled. That would be wonderful. Then they heard two ponies coming up to the house. They turned around to see the royal guards return, with ropes in their possession. Twilight gleamed to see them again.
Everything's set, and we're ready to take off. Anything you want to do before we leave? We are 20 minutes ahead of schedule, after all.
No, I think I'm ready. Catching this, the guards put the reins in place onto the chariot. Vanguard went and opened the door for the princess and her guest to come inside. Twilight piled in first, and Forest Mist joined her on the left side of the seating area. She grinned from ear to ear, and he was anxious about whether or not the crystal heart would block his spell from entering the Empire. It didn't matter. He had a ride to look forward to. The guards spread their Pegasi wings and flapped them furiously to take off. The chariot wheels started to turn. As they went into a dashing start into their flight, the house disappeared behind them, and they went from the confines of Ponyville to the freedom of the clouds. Before long, they could see the tops of the clouds below their hooves, and the calm air of the ground gave way to the breezes of the air currents. Their manes went from neat and orderly to windswept in all directions, and Twilight hid her crown behind her seat to prevent it from falling off. The wide stretches of meadows laid out before them while the chariot flew on. Not far from there, they could see Canterlot embedded into the mountain. Forrest never wanted to see that castle until he was ready to act against it, but he kept cool about it.
Isn't this great?
Twilight screamed past the wind currents.
It's not the first time I've seen Equestria like this, but it's still amazing, isn't it?
Yes, it is. You must feel privileged to see this as often as you like. The Crystal Empire wasn't in sight at the moment, so he spent some time to collect his thoughts. This was a big moment for his plans, even though it would not look like that to any outsiders. To have a meeting with Cadence was an opportunity to set his plans in motion, and if he screwed it up, he would either have to go back to step one or the whole drawing board. Assuming he lived to see it. And now Twilight was with him. She moved her head out to the side of the chariot, gazing at the land she would soon have authority over. To think she could fly over this when she had the chance was overwhelming, and one of the latest things she would have to get used to. At least this change was unquestionably positive. Forest Mist took a few deep breaths in the meantime.
Stay calm. Think rationally. Only you can screw this up, and everything will be alright. You just had coffee, so you'll have all the energy you need to survive this.
Oh my gosh! We're already here!
Twilight yelled. The two of them looked ahead, and spotted the towering crystal tower that had become a landmark in the past few months. It spiraled up for a good while, and shined brightly on their faces. Twilight had to shield her eyes from the light, but she was otherwise very excited. She leaned forward and saw more and more crystals come into view the closer they got. Forrest had to do everything in his might to cover his boiling emotions over his sentiments. It was a bitter reminder that he had failed to stop this from happening. But it didn't matter. If she was happy, and he managed to keep his emotions in check, what was there to complain about?
It's still not my empire.
The chariot drew ever near to the Empire, and it soon flew over the houses of its citizens. They all looked up to the princess above, curious about the reason why another princess of Equestria was arriving in their neck of the woods. Up ahead, the two of them noticed that there was something of a welcoming committee waiting for them by Cadence's palace. A handful of ponies waited for the chariot to arrive, some guards and some officials, and one pink alicorn Twilight would know from a mile away stood out in the front.
Cadence! That's Cadence down there!
Twilight explained.
She was my full sitter for years, and now she's the princess of the Crystal Empire. But where's Shining Armor?
Their carriage landed just outside the tower, and the committee went to work on giving them a warm welcome. One of the officials swung the door of the chariot open for the visitors. Twilight came out and Forrest followed her lead. Behind them, the chariot was pulled away to a station, where it would remain until they left. But that wasn't what Twilight was interested in. As soon as she touched solid ground, she raced to Cadence, and Cadence ran right to her.
Sunshine, sunshine, ladybugs awake! Clap your hooves and do a little shake!
They chanted together, while doing some kind of dance that was most strange to Forrest. Then they laughed and hugged each other. They were apparently very, very close.
Wow, you look all grown up, Twilight,
said Cadence, noting her crown and golden sandals. Twilight laughed again.
That's nothing compared to what you're doing. Where's Shining Armor? I thought he was joining us for lunch.
He got a last-minute letter to help the Royal Guard in Canterlot. He might be a prince, but he's still a captain.
He turned to see the friend Twilight brought along.
And who is this?
This is Forest Mist, Twilight introduced. He's the one I've been telling you about. Lives in a forest, found a long-lost Star Swirl book, that kind of stuff.
Pleased to meet you, Forest Mist.
She told me a lot of good things about you. Forest Mist took another deep breath, realizing this was the moment he needed to execute perfectly. Just stay calm. He met her halfway, and he saw everything there was to Princess Cadence. Her crown. How it meant she was the princess of his empire. That smile that would have melted most ponies' hearts. Her pink coat. Her cutie mark, meaning it was her destiny to take his place on the throne. Or at least, that's what Celestia tried to convince her. Yet when he came to meet her face to face, he brought her hoof in his and kissed it softly. "And I've heard a lot of good things about you, Princess Cadence," he said, bowing his head before her. "What you have done for the Crystal Empire is remarkable." Ah, he was getting good at masking his true intentions lately.
You were right about his sense of honor, Twilight,
Cadence commented.
I can see why you're friends with him. I bet you're all hungry by now, so let's go inside for some lunch.
You have no idea, Twilight said. I skipped breakfast just so I could make room for whatever you had in mind. The three of them went inside the Crystal Empire's central tower. The committee dissolved and returned to their posts, seeing that everything was attended to. Meanwhile, as they walked through the halls leading up to the dining room, Forest Mist brought his attention to the walls of the palace and his subjects that served Cadence. It was like living through a dream where the role assigned to him was reversed. How long had it been since he was in the castle, acting in the role of a common pony? Maybe when he was just a little cold. 2 double doors marked the location of the dining room. Without a word having to be said, a couple of servants went out to open the room's entrance with their unicorn magic. The wood of the doors creaked while the hallway was flooded with light. The dining hall was appropriately huge, with a long narrow table going from end to end. Large windows filtered the sunlight into the area, needing no candles to light. It was deserted of ponies when they arrived.
Go ahead and take a seat by the middle of the table,
Cadence said.
It shouldn't take too long. They've been working on lunch before you arrived.
Twilight and Forest moved and took their seats opposite Cadence, sitting right next to each other. There were already glasses of dark red wine waiting for them in their spots.
You got the first impression right,
he thought.
The second impression is just as important.
I assume things have been progressing smoothly since Sombra's defeat, he spoke up. This palace is in good condition from what I've seen so far.
Yes, that's right,
responded Cadence.
It's been rough at times, as you can imagine, but nothing I can't handle together with my husband. Now let's talk about you, if you don't mind.
Not at all. I'm all ears.
So what brought you to your current position? Most ponies don't live in forests like you do.
Just do it like you practiced.
Like a lot of ponies, I figured this was what I should be doing with my life after I earned my cutie mark. Not at first, of course, but after I was financially stable with my job as a carpenter, I was old enough to live on my own. I moved to the forest and took a few carpeting jobs to support myself after that. And I'm sure you understand why the cutie mark played a part in my decisions. Didn't you ever rethink your life when you earned yours?
Every pony does,
Cadence responded.
But I couldn't believe it when Celestia told me what my cutie mark meant. I was just a filly at the time, and I couldn't see myself ruling over an entire kingdom one day. That was a lot of pressure.
While she went over her past, Forrest turned to see how Twilight was holding up. She smiled at those memories, even though they weren't hers. And not to mention, it wasn't awkward at all that they sat next to each other. It felt perfectly natural. All according to plan. Even if he didn't envision it like this. And you're telling me, Twilight brought up. I'm excited about this new assignment Celestia has given me, but it's kind of scary. There's so many things I don't know about the job yet.
I know what you mean,
said the Pink Princess.
Don't worry, you'll do fine. I know you'll be a great princess.
I never doubted it, especially when I heard some of her accomplishments, Forrest interrupted. How can she fail when she has delivered on the level that she has?
That's right,
Cadence agreed.
I owe you so much, Twilight. I wouldn't be sitting here without your help.
Twilight blushed, embarrassed and flattered at the same time.
Thanks.
Cadence then turned her attention back to Forrest.
After she told me about your first meeting, there's only one thing I'm curious about. How did you obtain one of Starswirl the Bearded's lost books?
Forrest brought the wine to his lips, and abruptly stopped after the question. His pupils shrunk, and the air around him grew tense. That was one question he didn't count on hearing. Twilight leaned in closer, curious to hear about this too. It only served to make things all the more tense. And he hated these moments.
Any excuse will do with these ponies. They trust you right now.
Well, there can be long-lost ruins in the forests, of course, he explained. You know about Celestia's former castle in the forest, right? Twilight nodded. She was there when she defeated Nightmare Moon with the elements of harmony. Castles are not the only thing that can be abandoned. I once found a small building made out of stone, and half the exterior walls were gone. Since no pony was there, and it looked safe, I peered around to see what was inside. There were a few shelves, so I assumed it was a lost library. Most of the books were either ruined, or titles that had been catalogued already, but not that one. So I brought it with me and kept a careful eye on it until I knew what I wanted to do with it. In this case, giving it to Twilight.
Smooth, Sombra. Real smooth.
I didn't know there were old libraries in the forests,
Twilight exclaimed.
I want to see it myself when I have a day off. Do you think you could take me there?
Maybe, Forrest said. It might be in worse shape than it was when I left it, and it was almost ready to collapse. He exhaled a few times and forced his nerves to calm down. Thankfully for him, they brought the excuse. Cadence sank back in her chair and smiled, happy to see such a character turn one of Twilight's newest friends.
That's interesting,
Cadence responded.
Do you like reading like Twilight does? Most ponies wouldn't do what you did.
Yes, actually, said Forrest. I have a whole catalogue of books at home. It's what I do in my spare time. But enough about me. Let's talk about the time where you defeated Sombra with Twilight's help. He worked to hide the malice in his soul in those last words. It was like an art to him, to disguise what he really wanted to do to her, and his intentions weren't pretty.
With her help? More like Twilight and Spike defeated him with my help. Most of the time, all I did was buy them a few seconds to succeed.
But I've read a lot about that incident, and how he put dark crystals on your husband's horn, preventing him from using magic, and you yourself were exhausted from keeping the shield up to stop Sombra from coming in. That must have been a terrible experience.
It was. It really was.
Her throat choked up, but she regained her composure quickly.
It's over now. Yeah, we could always talk about other things, like Star Swirl's best book.
There is one thing I never knew about that incident, though. The moment after Sombra had fallen and you restored the crystal heart, it must have been a great moment for you, your husband, and all your friends. But how did you feel about it?
What do you mean?
I mean, to see him die before your eyes, and to realize the Crystal Empire was yours now. Cadence paused to drink some of her wine. A subject came by her side and whispered something in her ear. She listened and nodded.
Yes, bring them in.
Her grin cut deep into his skin. He was always curious how she saw his fall from grace from the place that was always his to claim. And how did she feel about it?
It was the second best moment of my life. The first being when I married the husband of my dreams. All the crystal ponies were free for the first time in centuries, and I became the leader of the whole empire.
He closed his mouth very carefully, so she couldn't see his teeth grinding together.
Patience. You will have your day.
Yes, I agree, he said. It was a great day in history for all of Equestria, and I propose a toast to your new rule. He raised his glass up in the air, prompting the others to do the same. Their glasses came together near the middle of the table. To the Crystal Empire.
To the Crystal Empire,
repeated Twilight and Cadence. They clanked their drinks together, and brought them back for a nice long drink. Right after that, the doors to the dining hall opened wide. 3 waiters went in with 3 silver platters and placed them at the table. They took the lids off, greeting Twilight and Forrest with the scent of hay and cheese salad. It was another modern thing Forrest had never seen before, but he knew he would enjoy it. As soon as his waiter put a fork near his plate, he grabbed it with his magic and had a few bites of the salad. He found it so delicious, he took his second bite immediately after the first one.
I knew you would like it,
Cadence laughed.
It's full of the same vegetables Twilight says you eat all the time.
Thanks for your consideration, he said. His first real compliment of the day to Cadence.
Now, how have the two of you been getting along, Twilight?
Twilight wiped her mouth clean with the napkin.
Really good. He's been a really nice pony to talk to, and as you can see, he's very respectful to royalty.
Please, he interrupted. Surely you must have that same kind of reception whenever you walk out the front door. Those ponies seem to like you, and they must be thrilled to be in your presence regularly.
Not as much as you would think. I've been living in Ponyville for years now, and they've seen me as a close friend rather than a princess over the years. It's hard to break that image.
Really? If that's the case, no wonder my treatment has caught you off guard. I hope I didn't come across as too forward.
Not at all. I'm just not used to it yet.
What they said was everything Cadence needed to know, in order to see what their friendship was like. Twilight was so easygoing with him, it felt to her like they were friends for a while. Thankfully, they weren't there yet, or there would be teasing. Cadence knew the difference between friendship and romance when she saw it, and all she saw at that moment was friendship. The rest of the lunch was rather peaceful. They made small talk through the rest of lunchtime, with nothing much happening. There was some catching up, some advice on how to be a better princess in the future, and the importance of the meeting concerning Ponyville's future. Twilight learned how important it apparently was to have a castle during that meal. A castle would be a great judge of character, and having a small peaceful castle would say all there was to her. However, the members of royalty soon discovered that whenever Forrest was not seeing them eye to eye in the middle of a talk, he was looking out the window.
He seems to really love it here. I've noticed,
Cadence noted.
It's not like anything in Equestria, said Twilight. How many places do you know that have buildings made of crystal?
In reality, the reason why he looked out the window was much more complex. He wanted to spend more time to see how the Empire was being run, now that he had the best view of it that he was going to get. Truly, it was like seeing a movie of a faraway land, or one that he used to call home but changed in his absence. To see his empire change so quickly was almost dreamlike.
Maybe you should show him around,
Cadence brought up.
Do you have the time to show him around? I understand that you're a lot busier with your new duties. I plan to be here for hours. I can do that if he's okay with it.
Forrest turned to Twilight, having kept a spare ear for anything they talked about. To see the Crystal Empire like that, he couldn't bear it in his heart. At least not today. No, I'm sorry to turn you down. It's so much to take in. When we come back, you can show me around as long as you like. Twilight picked up on the tone in his voice, and noted that his ears were perked down.
Is something wrong?
No, don't tell her. It would ruin everything.
I'm just overwhelmed by the magnitude of this place. Not even Canterlot can compare to its beauty.
I don't know if I could go that far,
Cadence countered, her cheeks turning to tomatoes. You can't be that modest, Princess Cadence. It's so magnificent that any pony would love to rule it, assuming they had the ambition to do so.
That's true, said Twilight. I'm sorry if this is too much. We can go home if you like.
She pressed a hoof on his own, and he realized it was out of concern as much as it was out of respect. That's when he noticed the opportunity to make the catch. Do you mind if we leave a bit early? He asked Cadence. I don't mean to intrude on your hospitality.
No, not at all,
she answered.
You're free to leave whenever you like, and you've been here for an hour already.
Thank you, Princess Cadence. It was a nice dinner. He got up out of his seat and waited for Twilight to leave with him. She exchanged a few words with her dear foal-sitter, and they shared a few hugs, and soon she walked by Forrest's side out of the Empire's palace. She was physically closer to him on the way out, something that told him that the next big moment of his plan was at hand. The guards would later be disappointed to learn that their rest was cut short, but understood that not all guests of the Crystal Empire would be able to handle its scope as well as they could. And so they took off into the sky again, aiming to return to Ponyville. By then, it was the middle of the afternoon, and the night wouldn't come for another 3 to 4 hours. However, the ride back felt much different. Twilight paid full attention to Forrest, eyeing him while she frowned over the past events.
I'm really sorry about that, she said to him. I really should have been more considerate of you. Next time, I'll take it slow, and make sure you're having fun.
It was fine. You didn't know, he lied. You were impressed with the Empire the first time you saw it yourself, right?
Right, but it was different then. I went there to stop Sombra, not to have lunch with one of my closest friends.
There it was again. Talking about him like that was grating on his nerves. Let's not talk about Sombra anymore, okay?
Fine by me. What bothers you about him anyway?
I like to focus on the future and not dwell on the past like that. It can cloud your judgment if you let it.
That's a pretty good reason. But we left several hours ahead of schedule, and I didn't have anything planned for the rest of the day, so I could spend time with Cadence. What should we do to kill time?
Ponyville and Canterlot were not far away by carriage, perhaps 20 minutes away, and close enough for them to see by that moment. Forrest smiled to himself. All the chess pieces were in place, and all he had to do was move them for the kill. Do you want to show me around your hometown? He asked.
Twilight moved her head away to hide her red cheeks.
Wait, is this codename for a date? It sure sounds like one.
Is that a problem, Twilight Sparkle? You could just call it a tour around Ponyville, but it's up to you.
No, I just never... You know...
I understand. I can just go home.
Wait!
She held a hoof on his shoulder to stop him, even though he couldn't just get out of a chariot that was a few thousand feet above the ground.
I think I would like that. I just met you is all, and I only brought you to the Empire because you said you'd never seen it before. But you seem nice to me.
She blushed again, deeper than before.
No ponies asked me out before.
He smiled and nodded. Then it's a date. Meanwhile, he would be making some preparations for later that night. He had a rough idea about how this date would end. Checkmate with a Pawn, Part 2. As the chariot kept drifting along the air currents, Twilight and Forest could make out Ponyville in their view. Since it was in the middle of the afternoon, many ponies were wandering around the streets, tending to their own business. School was almost over, and there would be fillies and colts walking around the streets soon. Despite how beautiful the day turned out with the partly cloudy day, Forest felt tense in his seat. It was not his fault he felt this way. That much he knew. He was looking forward to this date, given it was exactly what she needed to do for him, so that left one other possibility on the table. He turned to his right to see Twilight acting more nervous than she did when they were flying to the Crystal Empire. She hung her front hooves around her shoulders, as if she caught the cold. She seemed to be in deep thought, and she didn't have the courage to look at him. "Are you still nervous about the date, Twilight?" he asked.
Of course I am!
She snapped out of nowhere, but she realized what she did and stopped.
I'm sorry I'm acting like this, but this is the first date I've ever had, and I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing when we land, and I don't want to ruin anything about it, but I don't know where to begin.
She breathed heavily, doing anything she could to calm her down. Never mind, he thought. She was much more nervous than she was at the Empire. "Take it easy," he said, placing a hoof on her shoulder. "This is my first date too. I've never really done this before."
Really? Some pony like you?
Yes, it's true. When it comes down to it, I never had many reasons to pursue dating, and I let my ambitions get in the way, but I'm curious to see where this might go. She relaxed her front hooves, but her muscles were still tense to the touch.
That makes things better, but I don't know how we should do this.
Quick, Sombra. You have to come up with something soon. She's too unsure of herself to think straight.
Well, what would you be comfortable with? Twilight paused to think about it. She didn't speak for some time. By then, Ponyville was only 5 minutes away from their location. Forrest might have been good with his sense of patience, but he didn't have much time to work with anymore. The Alicorn's eyes lit up with an idea.
It's a really nice day outside, and we have a park in Ponyville we could walk around.
Sounds perfect to me. You're sure you want to go through with this? Twilight nodded. Her heart was beating fast, but this was something she wanted in the end.
Take us straight to Ponyville Park, if you don't mind.
Upon her command, the guards changed the course of their flight, from Twilight's house to Ponyville Park. The currents changed appropriately, sending more of the gusts of wind right into their faces. Even though they were a few minutes away from touching down, Forrest could make out their destination from his seat, and it appeared to be a nice and peaceful location for their walk together. It was a good-sized park, but not too big either, and there were a few walking trails cutting through the grass and some benches to rest on. At the center of it was a water fountain that all the trails originated from. While he thought about what they would discuss down there, he noticed that Twilight was still clad in her royal attire. "I've noticed you don't like to bring much attention to yourself," he brought up.
Not unless it's something really important. What's the matter?
Well, you're a princess and all, and you had a very public coronation.
Oh, I see. You're worried that we'll have a walk and I'll be busy talking to ponies wishing to honor me. That's no problem at all.
She used her levitation spell to take off her crown, and she put it behind her seat in the cart. Then she held out her hooves and removed her sandals in the same manner, neatly arranging them in a row around the crown. "How is that going to help you?" he puzzled.
It's the crown that gets the most attention, believe it or not. They don't even notice I'm an alicorn when they look at me. But a golden crown? That's when they know I'm royalty without even knowing who I am. How do I look without the crown?
Forrest stopped before he could say something. He never looked at Twilight's features in that way before, so he took a moment to examine her. Much to his surprise, he was taken aback by her beauty. Her mane's many colors were alluring to the eye, moving around in the wind currents. Her purple coat was very appealing to him, and he looked at her cutie mark for the first time. It must have been very symbolic to her magical talents, given what he knew of her, and he felt himself impressed with her looks. "I think you look beautiful," he said honestly. Twilight shied away, covering her face with a hoof.
Really? I don't really think I'm all that pretty.
"But you are, believe me."
The chariot drew ever closer to Ponyville, until they could see the buildings as clear as day. Twilight sat close to Forest Mist as the wheels of the chariot touched solid ground, right on the nearest street to the park. The winds were calm here, and they could hear a pin drop on the ground. Since school was not out yet, there was no pony in the park save for a few marathon runners on the running trails. Deep down, Twilight's heart was pounding. She was very optimistic about how this date would turn out. But it was her first date, too. What was she supposed to do? Were they supposed to kiss at the end? How many questions was too many questions? Was she thinking too hard about the many ways this date could go wrong? Her fears grew to be so bad, her front hooves were shaking from the pressure. She felt sick even though she was as healthy as could be, but she wondered if she should go home. And he knew she was afraid too. He had to do something to calm her down, or this would never work. In another case of quick thinking, he wrapped one of his front hooves around her waist. She turned to him in surprise, and caught him giving her a comforting smile. "It will be okay," he comforted. "We'll take it slow from here. Would that suit you?" She exhaled slowly and carefully.
I'm sorry. I just got carried away for a while. I'm sure it will be fine.
That worked. That actually worked. Thank goodness. And it's all going according to plan.
The guards undid the reins on their back, and rested the chariot near the entrance of the park. Vanguard came to Twilight's side of the vehicle and opened the door for her. She jumped down to the ground and turned around to see Forrest do the same. With that out of the way, she addressed the guards.
Stay around here for now. We'll be back here when we're ready to leave.
And so the two of them walked side by side to the park's entrance, neither one seeming to point out how awkward this date would be, with two antisocial bookworms going out together. The trail they picked led up to the fountain, where there were several benches surrounding it, but it would be some distance away, and they would have to walk for minutes to get there. While they went on their way, Twilight raced through all the questions she could ask. There was so much she wanted to know about him, but she didn't know what would make for a good first question. And like before, Forrest knew she was nervous. She didn't say anything for the first few minutes, and he thought about saying something to help her out, and then she finally opened her mouth.
I realized that I actually don't know a whole lot about you, she brought up. So what was your foalhood like?
So you don't know much about me. That is true. His voice trailed off, and he knew he was in trouble. His mind raced to create the answer he would need to satisfy her curiosity. If you can believe it, my parents were nobles, he started. They were high in society from where they came from.
So they're from Canterlot?
Canterlot didn't exist before my exile. So what do I say?
No, it was another city that was abandoned nearly 15 years ago. Long story there. Involves dragons and invasions. But they held a little bit of power in their day, serving the princess in her court. Since this was my upbringing, I lived a luxurious lifestyle from my parents' wealth, and it was an easy life for me. But they desired for me to follow in their footsteps as a noble, and that's not what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted something much different.
To take Celestia's throne for myself. That's where my desires went.
So I'm assuming you wanted to live in the forests, given that's your special talent, right?
Right, he lied with a straight face. There is nothing like being in a forest, allowing nature to surround you in your place. You can feel small but significant at the same time, and it's impressive to see how planting a few seeds can make a big difference when you give it time.
I understand what you mean. I didn't think friendship would mean so much to me just a few years ago, but now that I know what it's like to have it, I don't want to lose it anytime soon.
They carried on for a little while longer, but they grew a little tired from walking as long as they did. So they sat down on the first bench they found. They could see the fountain not far away, but it would still take some time to get there. The afternoon went on, and some fillies and colts ran around the park, while the alicorn and unicorn watched them go by. True to what Twilight said, no pony recognized her as Princess Twilight Sparkle without her crown and sandals. Forrest spied on one particular colt, a unicorn that was no older than 8 years old. He ran around the grass with a ton of energy in his steps, and he ran around with his sister in an intense game of tag. It was strange for him to see a colt like that, and a thought began to seep into his head for later. "So what else do you want to know about me?" he asked Twilight, who was lying rather tight to him. "There's one other thing I want to know about you. What do you know about books? You seem to show an interest in them whenever Cadence talked to you about it." He smiled. Finally, a topic where he would not have to lie at all about how he felt about something. "There are few things I enjoy rather than reading a good book," he began. "I can enjoy all kinds of literature, from magical technique to history lessons to fictional work. It's always impressive to see how much knowledge Starswirl had in his brain. It would have been an honor to work with him." "That's what I keep saying," Twilight responded, her eyes full of life. "I've read his book about the teleportation spell 3 times in a row in one weekend. It was so interesting that I couldn't wait to learn more about it when I was a filly." "Ah, that classic. How long did it take you before you were any good at that spell?" "Well, long story too. I could do it 3 months after I tried to learn it for the first time, but my mane would always catch fire after I finished. I probably spent 2 years practicing it before I mastered it for good." "That's half a year faster than me. Then again, it's clear that your special talent was always magic. Any pony can see that." Twilight looked down at her flank, staring at her cutie mark in particular. "So you noticed," she laughed. "It's always a great moment to earn your cutie mark, but I'm sure you're good at magic too." "But I'll never be able to match you in your magical skill. Speaking of which, what is your favorite Starswirl book?" "That's a tough question. How is any pony supposed to answer that?" "Okay, one you really enjoyed." "I hate to say it, because I just got it, but that book about dark magic is really good. I haven't seen anything like it before, and it's one of his richest works ever."
This gives me an idea,
he thought. "How about you show me one of the spells you learned from it?" Twilight gulped. I'm not sure if that's a good idea." "Why don't you think so?" "It didn't go over so well the last time I did it."
Okay, no intervention this time. She needs to be able to learn to trust the power of dark magic for this to work.
"Don't worry. I'll be here in case something goes wrong. Here, try to aim for that tree over there." He pointed at a tree on the other side of the trail. It was one of those trees that died during the last winter season, and some pony would cut it down anyways. "Okay," she said, clearly nervous about trying the spell again. She hopped off the bench and aimed her horn towards the rotting tree. Forrest scooted up from his spot to get a better angle at what was about to happen. Twilight's horn glowed a dark black hue, something that was highly unusual to her. Her eyes began to develop trails of purple mist while she prepared the spell. He smiled, since it was the first time in centuries he had seen any pony emit purple mist from their eyes. Oh, how he was looking forward to this. Then a sphere started to form at the tip of her horn. Her face was covered in sweat, and the spell was always difficult to prepare for release, but she had to do it, to prove that she was willing to improve on such a difficult field of magic. And then she released the spell. Her vision turned to white after a few seconds, unable to see anything. Her ears were plugged up as well. When she came to seeing and hearing again, she found herself sitting on the ground. She turned to her right and saw Forrest with his jaw dropped. What could have caused him to react like that? Then she finally got a good look at the tree. The tree trunk had a huge hole in the middle of it, and there was still enough wood to support it. But a bunch of material had shattered everywhere in her wake. "So, that's the power of dark magic," he commented, feigning a shocked expression. "Okay, I'm never doing that in a public place again. Target ranges only," she noted as she tried to get back on her hooves. But she stumbled on her way up. She fell down flat on her flank, and Forrest came to her aid. He held onto her for support, and she slowly regained the strength to stand upright. "I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to do that," she apologized. "I don't blame you," he comforted again. "You didn't know. Let's just keep going to the fountain. Does that sound good to you?" She nodded. The sooner she forgot about this, the better. They went on to the fountain, all while Twilight was shaken up from that incident. She could barely walk in a straight line, let alone go on a walking trail. She seemed more frightened to Forrest than she had in a while, and that was saying something given how the day went. "Stop for a moment," he commanded. "Wait, I'm sorry?" But when they did stop, she felt Forrest nuzzling around her neck with his snout. He did it very gently, careful not to scare her through his actions. She didn't react at first, but after a while, it felt good to have him comfort her like this. "Please don't be scared around me. I'm not going to judge you for that," he whispered. He kept at it, nuzzling around the top of her head and surrounding the horn. She muttered something under her breath, but he could not hear her. "What did you say? I didn't hear you."
I said thank you. I needed that.
He pulled away and smiled back at her. It worked after all.
"Feeling better?"
I think so.
So they went ahead to the fountain, and Twilight was much more relaxed the rest of the way there. All the while, Forrest was aware that she was taking a liking to him. Everything he did was working, which was exactly what he needed to happen. If anything, he enjoyed how easy it was to get to her. She enjoyed his company, and he knew exactly what she needed at the right moment. And he knew something was up, when they were so close to each other that their tails were touching. They arrived at the fountain soon after, with all 4 benches surrounding it empty for any pony to sit in. They picked the western bench, and spent a few minutes just watching the water, falling from the top of the fountain to the bottom. The fountain was almost therapeutic in how it soothed both of them. Twilight seemed a lot looser and not so uptight, and Forrest was more content with himself. He could hear her breathe, and they were slow, controlled breaths. "So what do you plan to do with yourself?" he asked. She propped up her head.
What do you mean?
"Well, you're a princess now. You can do anything you want with Ponyville, and you have duties to serve. Surely you must have something on your plate."
I do, actually. This next Tuesday, I'm supposed to be going to Canterlot with Mayor Mare to hold a meeting with Celestia. We're going to discuss what should happen to Ponyville, now that they have a princess living here.
He almost gasped at hearing something like this.
"You mean inside the castle of Canterlot?"
That's the place.
Another golden opportunity, falling onto his lap like this. It was so perfect he couldn't fathom how he could pass it up. Twilight, in Canterlot. Already his brain was working overtime to take advantage of this. It was exactly what he needed, and perfect for the next part of his plan. Then he felt a hoof poking at him on the side, a certain purple one.
Are you okay? You've been quiet since I mentioned going to Canterlot Castle.
"Oh, it's nothing," he said, snapping out of it. "I just don't want Pony to change too much is all."
I understand. I don't want it to change into the next Canterlot either. It's nice the way it is.
But his mind was preoccupied with what would happen in the real Canterlot. He would have to be careful there, but he was getting good at planning moves and executing them carefully.
"I think I might move here one day."
Twilight turned back to him, having been lost in her thoughts for a while.
Wait, what?
"It's a wonderful town, and there's forests in every direction for me to tend to. What's not to love?"
You're wanting to move here because of me, aren't you?
"I would love it, if you don't mind."
Twilight blushed again. He was getting to her in many, many ways.
I think I would like that.
The water kept flowing through the fountain's banks, as the mare and stallion shared another quiet moment together. They didn't speak to each other, but they didn't need to. That's when Twilight knew he was something special. When they could just be quiet and share a comfortable silence. At least, that's what she thought. When the quiet moment was over, the evening was approaching fast. The sun was setting, the moon was becoming more visible, and they would have otherwise been hungry. Yet they weren't. At that moment, Forrest had arranged for something to happen once they left. The next part of his plan was set into motion. Everything Twilight did that afternoon suggested she was ready for it.
"Hey, Twilight, you notice how you fly around in that chariot all the time?" he mentioned.
Yes, I noticed that a long time ago,
she said, with a little bit of rare sarcasm in her voice.
"Do you think you would want to ride around in the Wispy Woods on a carriage ride with that chariot?"
Twilight gasped. This was... Yes, that's what he meant by a carriage ride. Oh, how Rarity would kill for this chance.
I would love to do something like that.
"Then we should turn back to the carriage. It's getting late."
So they turned around and went back the same way they came. An older group of ponies ran around the park now, and it turned out that Forest Mist and Twilight were not the only ones out here on a date. More than a few couples came out for a picnic date on the grass. Twilight watched them on her way back to the carriage, thinking about her own date. She was still unsure how well it was going, but she was enjoying herself in the end. Until they passed that same rotten tree that Twilight used for target practice. The tree tipped over and crashed away from the trail, thankfully not landing on any pony,
Still, a crowd of ponies congregated around it, wondering what could have caused such a massive hole inside its trunk. Forest and Twilight agreed silently that they should run past the scene, and dashed through the trail until they found themselves at the entrance again. At that point, the guards were busy discussing personal matters in private. They were waiting by the carriage, mumbling and asking about what was taking them so long, when they stopped to see that the couple was back.
"It will be nighttime soon, your majesty,"
said Vanguard.
"What would you have us do now?"
If you don't mind, could you take us for a ride through the Wispy Woods for a while? I would really appreciate it.
First Strike and Vanguard looked at each other in confusion. When was the last time Celestia asked them to do something like this?
"Are you sure?"
First Strike asked.
"That sounds highly unusual to me."
Twilight shot them a brief glare.
There's nothing wrong with it. It's a date after all.
In the end, she didn't really tell them that this was a date until that moment, and the guards seemed all the more puzzled. But then again, they voiced no problems with her going out on a date. It wasn't in their place to correct her after all. So First Strike opened the door for them again, and they climbed aboard the carriage. The guards prompted the binds of the ride on their backsides, and they went off for the Wispy Woods once more. The way to that place was one long dirt road, still going for a while outside of Ponyville. Sweet Apple Acres laid out to their right, the last sign of pony civilization for a while. While they were waiting to arrive at their destination, Twilight drew herself closer to Forest, and put her bare hoof on his. He didn't stop her, and only seemed more relaxed because of it. And in a way he was. He went out with his goals that day, and he succeeded at reaching them. All the while, Twilight's head would have otherwise been full of questions at that point. Was she going too fast with this? Should they go out again? Yet her mind was clear, because she really didn't care anymore. She was sharing a quiet moment with Forest, and that's all she wanted. Then the carriage arrived right at the Wispy Woods, a place she would never forget. The trees curved their branches around the dirt path, blocking the sky save for a few flint rays of sunlight. Leaves covered the dirt in green, creating a surreal experience.
This is where we first met, isn't it? Twilight asked. I remembered how I was worried what would happen that night. First Strike and Vanguard were here with me, in case it was a trap.
She leaned her head on his shoulder, seemingly dazed but content. Their bodies were touching each other, and Twilight was only a few inches from snuggling Forest. What she couldn't see was how Forest smiled as well. Yet he seemed more alert than she was. "I still feel like I should apologize for the way it was arranged," he mentioned. "You had every reason to be suspicious, but I won't do something like that ever again."
"But I'm glad I took that chance,"
she whispered.
"Even if this doesn't work out, we could always be friends."
Forrest responded by pressing the bottom of his head on hers. He could tell that she was still a bit nervous, given that her cheeks were a bit red. He needed to make her feel like she could trust him, and he was aware that she was starting to.
"Thank you, Forest Mist, for a wonderful day."
But something caught his ear. It was a faint noise, but he would recognize it as the sound of a stream any day of the week. The time had come at last. "Gods! Stop the cart!"
"Wait, what's wrong?"
Twilight asked. His sudden action startled her, and she moved her head back to see what was going on.
"Why should we stop the ride?"
Vanguard inquired. "There's something I need to show her here," Forrest explained.
"Even if there is, we'll only stop if Princess Twilight gives the order."
First Strike responded.
"No, stop the cart,"
said Twilight.
"But as you wish."
The chariot's wheels slowed down as the guard stopped trotting them forward. It came to a complete stop in the middle of the forest, with leaves and trees surrounding them everywhere but in front and behind them.
"Now what is it that you need to show me, Forest?"
Twilight asked. "I want to show you something, but I'll have to take you out of the carriage to do it. It's a surprise I'm sure you'll enjoy." Twilight was confused by his words. They were sharing a nice romantic moment, and now she had no idea what was going to happen. Even then, though, there was nothing that suggested Forrest had any bad intentions for her.
"Fine, I'll come out, but this better be good."
"I assure you, it will be," he said with a slight edge in his shot. "You will never see it coming." Checkmate with a Pawn, Part 3. The time before dusk always seemed to carry a creepy atmosphere to it. Transitioning from the dying daylight to the moonlight created a faint orange glow every single day, and while most ponies didn't mind it at all, it managed to make the Wispy Woods feel like they were hiding something. Most of the tree branches blocked the sunlight from flowing into the forest, where Twilight and Forest were going. The sound of leaves crunching punctuated every footstep they made on their way to their destination. What awaited her when she saw the surprise was any pony's guess. She was cautiously optimistic about it in the meantime, given how the day was full of pleasant surprises to that point. Seeing Forest Mist grinning ear to ear helped to soothe any worries away that she might have had. He was very content with himself in her eyes, and there was no way it could be a bad surprise when he was acting like that. But he kept a close eye on her as well. Everything he had worked tirelessly for, every ounce of patience he spent on the princess, it was all coming together for this chance. They kept close together, the two of them, through the rest of the wispy woods. The guards were far away from them by then, and no pony could see or hear what they were doing. The sound of the stream filled her ears after a while. She recognized it almost immediately as that stream. It didn't hurt that he raced to the river as soon as they saw it. She ran right after him, not sure why the hay he was running out of the blue.
Wait for me!
She yelled.
I know you're excited to show me the surprise, but we don't have to run a marathon to get there either.
But he stopped as soon as he started, dragging his hooves to the ground to halt his progress. She halted right behind him, and turned to see what he was staring at. The banks of the stream greeted her with the sound of flowing water. A few lily pads rode the weak current to wherever it led. There were even a few fish inside, but not many. The shallow banks did not allow much room for swimming.
This is where we first met,
he said, seeing that Twilight caught up with him.
This very stream. It wasn't more than 2 weeks ago, but it felt longer to me.
I was thinking the same thing,
she responded.
I remember how cautious I was.
Yes, you had 2 royal guards with you, if I remember right.
Wait a minute,
she thought.
I hid them away so that he wouldn't be intimidated by a huge security presence. What do you mean, royal guards?
I'm not inexperienced with guards, you know. They might be the guard to your rule as well as Celestia's, but they love to snack whenever they have the chance, and all that smacking didn't help.
Twilight laughed, and she was relieved to know that's all he meant.
Yeah, they need to work on that.
Then she was greeted by silence. But this was different than that time at the fountain. It was the uncomfortable kind of silence. She fidgeted her hooves, and she was unsure what was coming next. The surprise wasn't here, and he seemed to be waiting for something. All it did was keep her asking herself what was going on. If anything, his grin was beginning to weird her out. It would help if she had some idea where he was going with this, but she was in the dark, and that only made things more tense.
Forest Mist, what exactly are we doing here?
She asked.
Waiting.
Waiting for what?
The surprise. It should be here any moment. In fact, I see it coming right now.
She turned her head, searching high and low for the surprise. What she saw took her by surprise. At first, all she could see was the outline of another pony coming to meet them. He had a black scarf around his neck, but she couldn't make out any other features. Then she saw something that blew her mind. The pony was a unicorn, his horn glowing from using magic. His snout was long and slender, not as masculine as Big Mac, but you knew it was a stallion all the same. The coat was green and the mane blue, and his body slender. It was another Forest Mist.
You were right about one thing, said the copy. I had some talent in magic after all. Maybe not the raw talent you carry, but talent all the same. We can't all be Twilight Sparkles.
Her jaw was flat on the floor. How was this even possible? 2 Forest Mists? She took a few steps back, as the 2 stallions joined each other side by side.
I don't understand,
she mumbled.
Are you twins? Clones? I don't get it.
It's a simple explanation, really, said the stranger clone. Do you notice that my horn is glowing, but the other one is not?
The forest mist that went out with her started to vanish. His features started to disappear as a sphere of magic formed in the middle of his backside. He was sucked into it without a fight, until there was nothing more than a big green ball. The sphere then went to the real forest mist's horn, crackling with green magic for a while. He never acknowledged how unusual this was to his date.
Again, I can explain this. You have probably noticed that I'm older than you by a
few years, at least. He chuckled.
So I know about a few spells you've never even heard of. In this case, the duplication spell. Using it, you can create a duplicate of yourself and have full control of it as you please. Difficult to control it and your own body at the same time, but I found a way.
Twilight's mouth was agape. She felt like running at that moment, but she wasn't sure why.
So I wasn't really with you today,
she figured out.
But why would you do that? Why would you send out a duplicate of yourself to go out on a date with me?
Ah, so the intellect side of you comes out with many questions. I do like that about you. It's not often that I meet some pony that can match my brains. Do you not remember that we went out to the Crystal Empire for lunch today?
What does that have to do with this?
She puzzled.
You're not making any sense with what you're doing.
You of all ponies should know why I had to send a duplicate instead of the real thing. After all. His horn glowed again, brighter than ever. His body lifted off the ground, and magical energy surrounded every part of Forest Mist. She couldn't help watching him from the harsh light, and had to shield her eyes with her hooves. Then the magic got to work. Every part of Forest Mist changed before her eyes. His green coat transformed into gray, his mane became black as the night, and his horn was unnaturally red. When it was over, he landed on the ground with a bigger sense of pride in his movements. He was Sombra, King of Shadows.
You should know the crystal heart would block me out. You were the pony that played a role in my defeat after all.
Twilight gasped when it was made clear who Forest really was, and as soon as she realized it was Sombra, her horn beamed with the strength of an offensive spell, prepared to attack him, right then and there. He only shrugged at her efforts. But that didn't faze her. She used a fire spell and launched it directly at Sombra, but he employed a blue shield to protect him quickly, and the fire spell clattered right with it. A cloud of smoke enveloped around him, but he emerged out of it in no time.
Impressive,
he commented.
You know how to think fast, but so do I.
She huffed and stomped her hooves on the ground. She was willing to fight him to the death.
What are you doing here, King Sombra?
She questioned with a strong edge in her voice.
I should bring the guards here right now, or let Celestia know you're here.
Would you really do that?
He asked.
I seem to recall that you were leaning on my shoulder not that long ago.
No more games,
she interrupted.
I know what you're doing. You're going to try and kill me, aren't you?
He shook his head quietly.
I know that you'll either manage to kill me yourself, or you'll run away before I can kill you. But would you really do that to me now?
Why not?
She shot back.
You hid the Crystal Empire for 1,000 years, terrorized many ponies in the meantime, tried to kill my brother and my sister, and I know you want the throne for yourself.
I did at one point,
he shrugged.
But that was the old me.
Old me? What are you talking about?
Have you noticed that I've been masquerading as Forest Mist for a while now? Right in front of your eyes.
Yes, I guess you did. But what did you mean by that?
Have you ever thought about what I have done for you, while masquerading around as Forest Mist?
Such as?
He grumbled something under his breath, knowing this was going to be a long night.
What have I done while I was Forest Mist? What have I done? I did nothing but the most thoughtful things I could have done for my former enemies. Think about it. I gave you a book from the Star Swirl Bearded, and I didn't force you into any deal to earn it. I just gave it to you, and that was all.
Twilight was prepared to shoot back at him with something, anything, when she realized that he wasn't exactly lying to her. She did get the book from him with no requirements. On a book about dark magic? Wait. Dark magic?
You gave me a book about dark magic. That's your field. You even said yourself that the reason no pony practiced it anymore was because of you.
But you do acknowledge that it is a Star Swirl book, no? You would know his style of writing anywhere, and it is difficult to replicate, and you would spot a true Star Swirl book a mile away. And was it a true Star Swirl book?
She blinked. He was telling the truth.
It was. Down to the last detail, she admitted. But that doesn't change anything. You're still a tyrant that tried to kill my sister.
You must have a bad memory, Twilight Sparkle. The last time I met your sister, I kissed her hoof and had a nice commendable lunch with her in her own palace. I treated her with respect and honor, and acknowledged that she was the new ruler of the Crystal Empire.
But you used the duplication spell to get inside the Empire,
she pointed out.
Yet I know enough about that spell that I could have attacked her while we were inside the Empire. You know it as well as I do that I treated her well. I had no game to play with Cadence, and we left because I wasn't feeling that good.
Twilight wanted so desperately to fight back against his argument, given that he was King Sombra of all ponies, but she realized she had nothing to use against his words. Everything she questioned, he had a good answer. Then again, she did have one question.
Why are you doing all of this, though? I don't understand why you went through all that trouble just to impress Princess Cadence. It doesn't make any sense.
Because I wanted to show to you that I've changed, Twilight,
he explained.
When I tried to take Equestria as my own, I had to lock myself away for 1,000 years with the Crystal Empire. Do you know what it's like to live in exile for that long? It's a never-ending prison. And then you and Spike came into the Crystal Empire to stop me. I tried to prevent you from taking the Empire away from my hooves, but I lost. You saw me fall yourself. I was mere inches away from death's door, and only recently have I gained the strength to take a physical form again. So I knew I had to change. If I couldn't do it my way, then I shouldn't have been trying to be king after all. I heard how Princess Luna and Discord reformed themselves, and now they're allowed to roam free as equestrian loyalty and citizens again. And they did terrible things in their wake, just as bad as I have. And on top of that, would you believe that I changed? Had I done anything in my true form? Answer me.
Twilight's jaw dropped again. She knew he had put her into a corner, and she was in a state of shock to hear this. It was true. She would have never given him a chance in his true state, like how she did with Discord, and he changed eventually. There was another uncomfortable silence, even though she knew what she wanted to say.
I know you have an answer for me, and I would like to hear it.
No,
she confessed, thinking she was in the wrong.
I would have reported to Celestia that you came back near Ponyville, and I would have hunted you down myself until I knew you were dead or captured.
Exactly. I can understand even now, but that's what you would have done. So I had to show you through my actions that I have changed for good. And now you know that I'm reformed. I want to change, Twilight. I really do. There would be no good ending for me if I struck out again to Celestia's rule.
After that outburst, after everything he had said, Twilight felt a strange sensation. Guilt. For not trusting him, and even willing to fight him when he revealed himself. And to think, she was starting to like him. But at the same time, her mind was still racing to see if there was anything to suggest he was up to no good. There had to be something to use. Anything. Then she found one thing she could use. He tried to go out with her.
But why did you try to romance me? She finally asked. There has to be a reason why you did that. Not even Discord tried to romance Fluttershy when he was released, and he's the craziest person I know.
In response, he came by and held her hoof in his again.
Why not romance you? You are a remarkable pony, Twilight Sparkle. Together with your friends, you have saved Equestria from doom 4 times now, including my own defeat. That is remarkable. And you are one of the smartest ponies I know. Celestia was wise to give you the title of princess over this land you have saved so many times. If anything, I'm surprised no stallion has tried to court you yet. They would be very lucky to have you as their mare friend.
This managed to put Twilight in a state of shock. She didn't know how to feel about his words, whether to reject them as another tactic of the enemy, or to be flattered by them. Sombra hugged her above her waist in the meantime, and she did not push back. Still, she didn't know what she should be doing for that moment.
I'm still going to keep an eye on you,
she finally said in his grasp. He pulled away, and seemed just as stunned as she was.
What do you mean? Have I not proved to you through logic that I have changed for good?
I need to be sure, she explained. I can't just let you do as you please right away. I still think you might have something to hide, and I want to make sure that you have changed.
He sighed.
And how would you do that?
The first moment I think you might be up to something, I am going to send a letter to Celestia that you're here. One attempt to convince me not to listen to Celestia or my friends.
one attempt to get me to leave Ponyville, or any moves that suggest that you might be doing this as part of a plan, I will end you. Is that understood?
He nodded.
Understood. You did this with Discord as well, didn't you?
I had to. You don't allow a powerful being that tried to take over Equestria to just roam free unchecked. Are we clear?
Sombra nodded again.
I promise that you will never need to do such a thing. And besides, I'm not that subtle. Crystals!
He yelled, mocking his actions inside the Empire.
Yes, you would know when I'm up to something immediately.
Then that's settled,
she said, trying to repress a laugh.
I think we're clear about things now. I'll be on my way home now.
Do you want me to come home with you?
He asked.
I could turn back to Forest Mist so no pony would suspect a thing.
No.
She shook her head.
Not tonight. I want some time to think about this. About us.
Time to take it all in. It was a lot to absorb, wasn't it?
It really was, and I really want to believe that I can trust you, after all you said tonight. But it's so hard to believe when you almost killed my brother and sister-in-law.
It won't happen again. I promise.
After he was finished, his body started to disappear again. It slowly transformed into a cloud of black mist, just as big as he was. When the transformation was complete, he left the wispy woods there, going off into the direction of his castle. By then, the dusk gave way to the night. The daylight was diminished, and the moon coated the forest in a blue glow. It was like being in a different place altogether. The air was heavy with doubt and anxiety, and the feeling that something was there still resided. But it wasn't just Twilight sitting there by the stream, all by herself with her thoughts. Dozens upon dozens of them. She didn't know if she wanted to move. She would get sleepy and really hungry soon, but she wasn't aware of that. All she was thinking was everything Sombra said to her, and she still didn't know how to feel about the situation. The shock would take a while to get over. And here is where the fic starts to be amazing. Oh my gosh. This fic is great. This fic is great. I love it. I love it. It's awesome. Twilight's awesome. Sombra's awesome. The love-hate relationship is awesome. Or, well, it's not really a love-hate relationship, but you know, whatever. This is getting juicy. This is getting juicy. Yay. But yeah, so the song, or not, it's not really a song, it's more of a rhyme or dance, or I forget what people refer to it as. I'll have to look it up later. But the thing that Twilight and Cadence do every time they meet each other is... that was demoralizing. Oh yeah, that was actually kind of painful to do because that's not manly at all. But yeah. But yeah, this is really getting good. I'm having a lot of fun doing this. Again, thank you, the Sir Heartstrings, for suggesting this. Again, okay, I hope to have part 4 up soon. Really soon, because, but yeah, hopefully part 4 will be up soon, and, I really hope you guys liked this part. Not as much Batman, but, I mean, the guards only spoke for 1 chapter, so not as much Batman. But regardless, I really enjoyed doing this section, and yeah, it's only gonna get better from here. So yeah. But yeah, I've rambled on long enough. I guess I guess all that's really left to say is that I'm almost at 300 subs, which is awesome. And once I hit that, there will be an announcement for a 300 sub special soon. But yeah, so anyways, you guys, there's not really much left I want to say. So have a great day, everybody. Catch you later. Checkmate with a Pawn, Part 1. Excuse me. Already a burp. This is gonna go smoothly. The sphere gracefully drifted along the tree. Yeah. The sphere gracefully drifted along. I'm giggly today. The sphere gracefully drifted along the treetops. Does that make me a prince? Yes, Spike, you're totally a prince. You're awesome enough to be a prince. You're finally getting your dues. You're finally getting you're finally getting what you deserve, because people give you crap. People give you crap and you deserve it. You totally get the title of prince. You totally get the title of the singer Prince. I'm rambling on about nonsense now. I'm so giggly today. I'll take it! I'll take it, I'll take it, I'll take it, I'll take it, I'll take it! That totally works. That totally works for him, because with what I have planned in the future. Because, okay, for those of you who actually stay for the bloopers, you're in for a real treat. I'm disclosing what I have planned for the future of this channel. I plan on doing Pokemon Let's Plays in character as Spike. And for a good chunk of it, he's going to be ripping off of King Nappy, because I'm going to make him a huge King Nappy fan. And so he's going to be ripping off of Nappy's Pokemon Let's Plays. And Nappy says, I'll take it, a lot. He's like, I'll take it, I'll take it, I'll take it, I'll take it, I'll take it. And so, you know, just that phrase, I'll take it, totally works for him. I wish I were doing these I wish I were doing the Let's Plays now, so that this joke in the bloopers would be more relevant. But you know, but yeah. I'll take it! I'll take it, I'll take it, I'll take it, I'll take it, I'll take it! But anyhow, okay. Alright, back to the real reading. Twilight Gleam... Excuse me. Twilight gleamed to see... Excuse me. Wow. The two of them looked ahead and spotted the towering crystal tower? That's redundant. Towering crystal tower. Okay.
She was my full sitter for years, and now she's the princess of the Crystal Empire. Of the Crystal Empire!
Okay. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I have to do this. I can't believe I have to do this. Okay, get into Cadence. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this taking it I don't know if I'm gonna be able to take this seriously. Okay. Cadence voice, cadence voice, cadence voice.
Sunshine, sunshine, ladybug's awake. Clap your hooves and do a little shake.
I don't like the way that sounds. Fuck! Okay. I wonder how long I'm going to be here with that stupid dance. Okay, alright. Okay. Water. Let's do this. Okay, let's do this.
Sunshine, sunshine, ladybugs awake. Clap your hooves and do a little shake.
They chanted together, while doing some kind of dance that... while doing some kind of dance that most strange to four... Yeah, it's a pretty strange dance. Okay.
Smooth, Sombra, real smooth. Smooth, Sombra, real smooth. Smooth, Sombra, real smooth. Smooth, Sombra, real smooth.
I want to make it. I want to make sure that it's in a way that doesn't sound sarcastic. I want to make sure that it doesn't sound sarcastic. He almost gasped. He almost gasped. Almost gasped. Wow. He almost gasped to. He almost gasped to. He almost gasped to. Almost gasped to. Almost gasped to. Almost gasped to. Wow. He almost gasped to hear something like this. He almost gasped. He almost gasped. Almost gasped to. Almost gasped to. He almost gasped to. Yeah. He almost gasped to. Alright, I'll replace to with at, because that's too hard to say. Given how the day was full of pleasant, not pull. Given how the day was full of presents. Pleasant, not present. Oh my gosh.
Celestia was wise to give you the title of princess over this land. Obi-Wan was wise to keep her from me. Use the Force, Twilight. Use the Force. Use the friendship, Twilight. Use the friendship.
Okay.